Okay, we'll just give it a little test here. Make sure the belt's not going to come flying off. It shouldn't. Now I'm sure that I can find a board in all this scrap lumber that I can use as a test board for testing out my sander here. Okay, now this is a piece of cedar fence board. I think the whole board was only like $2.56 for a 5-foot board, so I'm not going to lose a whole lot of money here. And this one doesn't have any loose knots or anything. It's got one little knot right here, but that's okay. And we'll use this for a test. See what happens. Now I can't help but notice that this board is a little bit crowned. In fact, it's a lot crowned. So that means I'm going to have to put it to the sander, I'm guessing, an extra 3 times. But that's okay. Now this is the way I adjust this machine for its very first pass. What I'll do is I'll rock these rollers back and forth, and I'll crank the machine up and raise the conveyor until I can hear. There. Okay. The rollers have just now touched the board when the lever is like this. Now, naturally I can't get the board out. So what I'll do is I'll go back one exact turn. Then I can get the board back. Now I'll go one exact turn ahead to where it was before, and that'll be my first pass. Now the reason I took the lever off there is because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to close the lid. Okay, this board is about as smooth as I can get it using a combination of 80 grit and 120 grit. I can see little lines here. Maybe I'll move in a little bit closer and maybe you can see the lines too. Now I really hope you're watching this in high definition, and please understand that we are really moved in now. This area that you're looking at is approximately 1.5 inches across and about 1 inch high, about the size of a 35mm slide if you can think back that far. Now here to give you a bit of a perspective is the eraser of a pencil. I'm holding a flashlight here at a shallow angle to the board, and that way the lines cause little tiny shadows and you can see them better. But these lines are extremely small, and the board actually feels smooth to the touch, even though it isn't. Now when I'm cutting new belts, I always take the original old one and I use that as a template. And one thing is for sure, and that is that you don't want to cut it too short. Because you can always cut it shorter, but you can't cut it longer. Now, just a little bit more here. Well, this roll here probably lasts me all my life. This is the 150 grit, and I've got about, I think it's over 300 feet of it there. $50 yards. Now before I take these belts off, I want to show you how well this thing works. And this is the way I do it. There might be a better way, but this works for me. Now the reason why I'm vacuuming off those little granules of rubber that were sort of embedded into the sandpaper is because I think it could possibly cause a little bit of havoc when I first start doing my next project. Maybe not, but better safe than sorry. Oh, if it could only go this fast. This normally takes me about 4 minutes. Those two rolls of sandpaper came from different manufacturers. I think that's probably why they're different colors. I don't think there's any difference in quality. Sometimes the black indicates a higher quality, but maybe not. Now I don't know if you can see this or not, but underneath there are 3 pinch rollers. They hold the work down tight against the conveyor. And I was just noticing that they got a slight buildup of that rubber eraser on them. Well, not a buildup, just little granules. Now maybe I'm being too cautious here. I don't want to get all of that rubber eraser, or at least as much as I can. I want to get it off. There's one at the beginning. There's one right at the in the middle between the 2 sanding rollers, and the last one. I think I'll do the last one from the other side. Now I've never actually bothered to do this before, but being as that this is a quality test, I want the test not to be spoiled in any way by maybe little pieces of rubber. I've got the conveyor adjusted to the right height now, so that the sandpaper is just kissing the board. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it through one way, adjust it slightly up, very slightly up, and then I'm going to pass it through the other way, and we'll see what we've got. What I want to do now is I just want to check, and does it look like both drums were actually touching the board? And it does. You can see that the 220 here seems to have been doing more cutting than the 150, but I think it could possibly be because the 220 is so fine that the powdered sanding dust sort of sticks into the, embeds itself better into the grit. I know they were both cutting because I could actually hear this one cutting, and then as it moved along I could hear this one cutting. Now I didn't show you this, but I've passed it through one more time. And the reason for that is I recall that one of the comments I got, the guy mentioned that he found that if he ran the board through at the very slowest speed, he got the best results. So I slowed it right down as slow as it would go, the conveyor that is, and put it through again. And this does feel very smooth. We'll do the flashlight test thing again, and put my macro lens back on, and we'll just see what we got. Do a comparison. And here's what that 220 grit looks like, and I moved in as close as I can get. And here's the 120, same magnification. I was going to give it a coat of urethane, and then I was thinking, well, why don't I take my Orbital sander and finish it off as smooth as I can absolutely get it. That is, just half of it. I'll leave this half from the drum sander and try and keep a nice defining line here so that there's no overlap if I can, and just see, is this good enough to finish? Because that's sort of the test. I've used a piece of cloth here to protect the wood so that it doesn't get damaged by this jig that I put on. And the idea of the jig is so that the sander will go up against the edge, and then I'll just be going back and forth in an exact straight line. And the division from drum sander to orbital sander should be very defined. That's the plan anyway. We'll see what happens. I'm going to start out with 320, then I'm going to do 400, and then 600. And this little gizmo here that I made up, boy, is that ever handy for getting the holes to line up on the orbital sander. Put this on, get the hole lined up, push it on, take this out. The holes are perfectly lined up. Well, clearly I got a little over-exuberant when I was using the 320 grit. I didn't need to take it down in dimension. All I needed to do was sand it. But at least there's a real defining line there. This is the side that was the drum sander, and of course this is the side that was the up to 600 grit. So I'm just going to put the macro lens back on, and we'll zoom in again and take a closer look. Okay, that defining line is right here in the middle. Now we'll do the flashlight thing again. Okay, you can see those little micro lines that the drum sander left. But let's see what the difference would be after some finish was put on. So okay, I think that's it for today. And tomorrow I'm going to put varnish on. I think I'll put varnish on the top and stain on the bottom half. And we'll just see how that looks. Anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for watching.